generational partnerships. Those are the partnerships that prevent tokenism. Those are the partnerships where young people are looked at as co-creators of solutions, leaders of innovation, and leaders who can take this country forward. So let's leave the conversation on compassion and looking at young people as a group that represents all the problems that define our country.
You want to Thanks.
Woo. Thank you very much. Very passionate Rema Azoris, and you know, it keeps resounding, the guardian syndrome, where people feel like even in the workspace or in civil society, rather than being a mentor, they are parenting you at work.
Weewaawo ndowooza gwagenda maaso n'okuba ng'otulaba era ng'otugoberera nkwebaza nnyo nze Mumbejja Luwedde Lilian era nga bw'olaba omukolo gukyatambulira ddala era nga tuli ku National Civil Society Organization Convention 2025. Tutunuulira ebiseera eby'omu maaso ate muna ebya civil society mu ggwanga lyattu Uganda. Ebintu bingi nnyo ebiri mu kugenda maaso right now bw'otunuulira technology butya bwali mu kutambula, emikutu gye mugatta abantu butya bwe tugikozeseza era nga mu bufu bwe bumu omukyala gwendi naye mu studios ye mukyala Agatha at Highway. Alina ebitiibwa bingi nnyo oba oliawo nyinza obutagenda into details of every title that she has, but she's going to be speaking to us okweyongera okutegeera emikutu gino gye mugatta abantu tusobola tutya okugikozesa ate okulaba nti tubaawo enkyukakyuka gye tuleeta especially ebitongole ebyobwannakyewa. So wetugenda okuba nga tukyambulira ate ayongera okutubuulira weewaawo ne session gye tubadde nayo ku digital tools ne butya ebitongole bino bisobola okukozesa digital tools ezo okukyusa engeri gye bakolamu emirimu but also n'okukyusa obulamu bw'abantu be bakwatako. Nkwaniriza nnyo mukyala Agatha era muza kuba tulaba.
Nayanziza ate mbabuuzaako mwena abali ku mukutu guno amanya nga bw'ayogedde nze Agatha Haire. Ebitiibwa si bingi nga bw'agambye, ndi munnamawulire ne activist. Nasoma ebyamateeka naye ebyo sibigendamu nnyo, nsigala ku court of public opinion, kooti za wano ndowooza eza judiciary tezisoboka nnyo.
Bw'enjogera ku mukyala Agatha ndowooza abasinga mu mutegeera ababaddeko ku mikutu gye mugatta abantu mukimanyi nti abadde ku forefront bwe kituuka kwogera ku nsonga eziruma bannayuganda mu kulwanirira eddembe ly'obuntu n'okwogera ku nsonga ezo eziruma bannayuganda. Kakati omulabi wange ayagala okumanya mu convention eno oyitiddwa mu kitiibwa ki era obadde oze ku addressinga nsonga ki?
Nze mbadde ndi wano as a digital activist. Kati wa digital activist mu Luganda osobola kyogera naye emitimbagano
obulwanirizi bw'eddembe oba omwogezi w'ensonga ng'akozesa ebikutu gye mugatta abantu.
Exactly. So kubanga kati civil society oba mainly NGOs zategedde nti you can't run away from the social media. The digital era is upon us. Bobo yagala kutuuka ku bantu abangi ennyo abatasobola kulabika ku TV stations oba amawulire amalala, naddala abato abavubuka. So the population ya Uganda, about 75% of it are people below 30. Kati abo abantu bateera nnyo okubeera ku gino emitimbagano okusinga kulaba amawulire ku TV oba kukwata eggulire ne basoma.
So information bamujja online.
Exactly. Bw'okolaako ku survey ogenda kusanga nti 90% of those information amawulire gonna bagajja ku Twitter, ku Facebook, ku maybe Instagram ne TikTok kati. So kati ndowooza civil society sector neeraba nti bw'oba tokozeseza ate these digital tools that are here oyinza obutatuuka ku bantu b'olina okutuukako. Kubanga nze nga nze ayogera nali mu mawulire amalala, nali journalist in the mainstream media. Bw'owandiika story yo 1000 words togenda kufuna abantu bangi abagisomye eyo story eyo information abagifuna. So you have to find ways okuleeta information eno where people are, where the majority of the people are. So kati ekyo kyekindeese wano okubeera ne experts abalala in that digital sector ne twogerako eri aba civil society engeri gye basobola ozikozesa tapping into them for inclusive engagement to make sure that all Ugandans are able to share their views and we are able to hear from them and exchange information.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Those bwe tutunuulira ku convention eno from yesterday ebize byogera bibadde bingi nnyo nga ebitongole ebimu byemulugunya of course ku bureaucracy aliwo mu ngeri gye bakolamu emirimu gyabwe amateeka mangi nnyo actually makakkali agabanyigiriza mu ngeri gye bakolamu emirimu gyabwe nga ebitongole by'obwannakyewa naye ate tulaba ebitongole era bino bikozesa nnyo era emikutu gye mugatta bantu biyinza bitya okukozesa platforms zino oba spaces zino okuinfluencinga policy change because waliwo bingi nnyo waliwo policies ezinyigiriza emirimu gy'ebitongole by'obwannakyewa oba civil society nayo n'okutwalizaamu so tusobola tukozesa emikutu gino gye mugatta abantu oba technology ono omupya zze okulaba nti we influence policy
nze ndowooza gino emikutu mainly gya ku informing abantu kubanga at the end of the day abantu abalina obuyinza the population as a collective kati bw'ojja n'obawa information ekigenda mu maaso mu parliament judiciary in the entire government kati bo ng'abantu be balina okuteeka new pressure on government they elect kubanga bano abantu fe ababalonda it's the people that are voting them, it's the people that are paying them kati at the end of the day be balina okuteekako embeera that forces the government to act so the work of the civil society then there is guarantee to make sure that people are getting this information. So it would be like civic education of sorts, sensitizing people, appealing to them to participate in issues that concern them. Most times we are the informed ones, we are the ones that have access to this information, so it's our responsibility to give this information to the people so that they make informed decisions. And these decisions zikola in many ways, including okulonda. So bwe tuba tukozeseza resources zaffe as maybe civil society. Let me use an example of Agora where I work. Ne tubaleetera information. This MP is corrupt. This speaker is corrupt. This government is not acting on this corruption. It's you, the people, that should say, ono tatuchikirira bulungi, tatu representing in the way that we want. Because if our issues are roads and n'amadwaliro agatalina ddagala agatalina basawo, but someone is taking the entire budget that would equip this health center for themselves. Tetugenda muzaayo mu parliament. I think we've seen that mainly with NUP, the National Unity Platform. Ngabo, they have shown that they have the power to kubanga kati bw'olaba abantu baabwe bebagyeyo ababaddeyo in ne bagimye. So it's different from NRM. NRM yagala cadres. Ne bw'oba okoze eki, they want to continue giving you a card until I don't know why. Kubanga bw'olaba someone like Moses Ali. So that example of NUP shows that ultimately some people have that power to say kati tetugenda kukola ki, tetugenda kulonda, tetugenda kuzaayo mu parliament kubanga totukiikiridde, you haven't addressed our issues. So I think for me that's as far as the civil society can go in ensuring changes. But also some would, through research, propose alternative policies to the government. The problem there is Twina government which accepts to take this advice. Do we have it? Is there a political will? So that's how at the end of the day you focus on conscientizing the people. If we come at it as a collective at the end of the day, and demand.
I think that there are people who are saying the civil society organizations seem to be in bed with government, a reason as to why tebavaayo boolyawo kwogera ku nsonga ezinyigiriza bannayuganda ate nga tulina platforms nga zineeno.
I think that's a suspicion that many people have.
Okay.
And those it is a suspicion that is informed by how much work some civil societies do.
Okay.
How are they engaging? Naye bw'olabira ddala waliwo ensonga lwaki, because to survive as a civil society in this country is also not easy. The civic space has been shrinking and shrinking. Basookera ku donors ne babagoba nga DGF. N'abaliwo kati the individual donor entities, they have been threatened. So there are people that if you are a donor, botayagala okudiringa nabo kubanga abantu government tebaagala bwekitegeera nti odirinze nabo, you are jeopardizing many of other programs that you have. But also donors have their own interests. You don't want to jeopardize their own interests. So that's one. The other one is how they use the law. They have brought amateeka agakifuula ekizibu ennyo to sort of criticize this government and be like very critical. N'osigala ng'okola ki? The NGO Bureau and the NGO Act, I think there's even an amendment going on, have all been very tools that the government is using to hold like a rope around the NGO's neck. I was saying it at issues like preservation. They decide to, try and balance. If you're trying to balance, it means that there are some things you're not going to mention. I see that every time we want to come to our discussions, discussions around these issues, and many people say, Agora, I'm really radical, we don't want to be in trouble. So I think that's what people interpret as being in bed with the government. But also historically it is known that those infiltrations are there. Government is always going to have its people that are planted here and in every other sector. Nze nkugambye nali mu newsroom for a long time. Oyina journalists bamanyi they are spies in newsrooms. So even the NGO sector, how will you know what they are planning? They are running an NGO. You can even aid them to start theirs, or so that they are in these spaces. They are taking to them what the NGO is planning. But for us, we look at you and think you're one of us. You go on TV and spit fire like all of us. But
the other side. You
are the other side. The only difference is that we don't have the same amount of trouble, the same amount of risk and close. So yeah.
You've talked about trouble, but also sisa kumaliriza nga sikubuuzizza kibuuzo kino. Obadde at the forefront ku campaigns ez'enjawulo. Twalaba parliamentary exhibition, twalaba march to parliament, at least somehow, somewhere, obadde ku mwanjo nnyo. Tulina abavubuka abaagala obaolyawo okukola kyokola during this electoral season. How best can you guide them okozesa platforms zino bakozesa emikutu gino gye mugatta abantu respectively?
Nze ngamba nti buli omu buli munnayuganda abavubuka especially. I say abavubuka especially because while other people, majority of his cabinet, are in the evening of their years, they don't have more than 10 years here. Fe tukyalina a long time. It works for us to make this country better. There's no other way around it other than confronting the issues that are affecting us. The trouble I'm talking about, I've been in it a couple of times. The risks are immense. Have my old age in a dysfunctional system. Have my children in a dysfunctional system where the education is dead, the health sector is dead, the road infrastructure is dead, the moral fabric and the social, the social aspect of it is dead, is that an option? So it's something I would like the young people to ask themselves.
Okay.
What type of a country do you want to grow up in? What type of a country do you want to raise children in? Unless you have an option to say, I will live in Mbera Warara or Mfune Egwange Dara, where I will call home. It's the only way you can afford to say can be vehicle.
Okay.
Now, that's not the issue. You have to be like some of us that are saying, regardless of the risks ahead,
Okay.
we are going to raise our voice. We are going to push back against impunity. We are going to push back against the lawlessness.
Okay.
At the end of the day, the law is on our side. The truth is on our side. The Constitution in Article 1 gives you that power. Power belongs to the people. The Constitution in Article 3 gives you that power to defend it from whoever might be violating it. So yeah, you have a right and a responsibility. And all those should, override fear and selfish interests, because some young people are looking at I think that's not sustainable. The sustainable thing is that we are all working for a country that works for all of us.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
So to ask an editor for space in the newspaper, now we have platforms. All you need is having a smartphone, which many young people have, and using it in a way that is constructive.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miss Agatha. Thank you so much, our viewers, for joining us this afternoon. Tugenda okubanga ate tuwumulira mu kotudde ate eri munda okwongera okubatuusaako ebigenda mu maaso esayidi eyo. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Georgia. I think I will start off by saying that contrary to how most people think about technology, I believe that technology is like Pandora's box. It has so many opportunities, but it also has so many challenges. Digital activism is celebrated or looked at as the face of the future and how civil society should evolve. But the reality is different. Many rural youth and those of low-income status struggle to access technology, or let alone use it. So some of the strategies that we use technology as an extension. They do not replace the community engagements, but rather extend the kind of work that we do in communities and bring it onto digital platforms. That digital divide that we talk about, as civil society organizations, we should embrace it as an opportunity. It's not something that we should look at as the only means to an end to solve some of the challenges that young people face. But one thing I would like for us to note, ladies and gentlemen, is that much as we are embracing technology and everything that it comes with, we must be very careful. Digital literacy should not be used as a ticket for young people to access civic space. I will use myself as an example. The communities that we work in, or let alone in our own homes, my own mother feels a certain way being told, okay, go to your WhatsApp, check this, navigate this, do use bite-sized information, those technical terms. Many young people deep down within us are afraid of being exposed as people who do not know what technology is. So if we're using this as one of the ways in which we are burdening civil society or the initiatives that we're pushing for young people, we should not front it as the only ticket that we are supposed to use as we engage in young people. We should be open-minded. We should be cognizant of the fact that technology should be used on the principles of equity, accessibility, but also keeping in mind that the content that we share should be accessible in localized languages that even people in communities who we claim to serve can understand. And these are the strategies that ensure that we do not leave anyone behind. Anything outside that, where so much technicality comes in when we're using social media or different other platforms, we are othering or ostracizing the young people in the communities. And that is something that I wanted to point out. Thank you, Georgia.
Okay, thank you very much, Remy. If you could add on, Lisa.
Thank you. I think that I agree wholly with Remy. Meaningful digital organization or organizing should be hybrid. It should have the component of using digital as a tool, but also constantly reminding ourselves, just like Agatha was here sharing, that 15% have access to these tools and all that. So we also know that the majority of young people don't have access to this. So as we plan, as we mobilize, it has to be hybrid. I'll give an example of Giving Tuesday as a global generosity movement. So Giving Tuesday does not only just run a digital campaign for people to give or share kindness or something of that sort. It then translates this activism online into community as well by choosing local chapter leaders, just like myself, who they know will then engage with communities. But also, to be specific, Giving Tuesday itself, running across 111 countries, has introduced a chapter that only focuses on youth, which is Giving Tuesday Spark. So they, what happens is that this particular youth are chosen, those that are closest to the community. And yes, they pick up these digital messages, but then they translate them into offline activity, offline action, and then popularize it online. So it has to work hand in hand. We can't just rely on the digital side of it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Lisa. 3 key words: localize, popularize, and let it be hybrid. It can't just be one or the other. I'll come back to you, Godwin. Toko is the name that is known most. So Toko, research is very critical for credible advocacy. And, you know, research in terms of largely data, most of the work that you do online, you are now a household name on X, Twitter. And we also have, I think, someone called Sams, who doesn't have to do a lot of research. He will just go get the Auditor General's report. There's a lot of data out there that people overlook, and just keep highlighting sections of the Auditor General's report. And, you know, just bringing us evidence how salary to a tune of around 600 billion is being paid to 30 people in just 1 month. How can young researchers like yourself, activists like yourself, better use digital platforms to make data and evidence on governance and accountability not only accessible, but also actionable, you know, for peers and grassroots movements? So the hashtags that you guys usually create, that call to action, like what do you want us to do, and how can you just make that more actionable, more accessible to everyone?
Yeah, so the first thing is that there was an Economist magazine report, I think, around 2015, should be about 10 years ago, that talked about research and Africa. So that report, I think you can find it online. It was very, very interesting. The first thing is that South Korea, I think it has about 40 million people, does more research than the whole of Africa. So Africa's contribution to the global research, I think, was about 0.something%. So that shows the magnitude of the problem we're dealing with. So when they broke it down and put it into statistics, into what that meant. So first of all, I think the Democratic Republic of Congo, I mean, the most basic research any country can do should be a population census. But I think the Democratic Republic of Congo last had a census in 1984. So the country is literally running on estimated population for that long. So at least we have had the census, I think, only last year, which means that maybe was it last year? Last year, right?
Yeah, 2024, where some of us are in others.
Yeah, we are slightly better than them. So that shows you the magnitude of the problem that we face, not just as, say, young people or Africa or Ugandans, but as a continent, that we are really not doing enough research. And in the what we call the information age, I don't know if you're still in the information age. Information really carries the day. And that same report showed that in Nigeria, for instance, there was an incentive to alter research data because Nigeria operates a federal government system. So governments allocated money based on the population of their regions. So each region was trying to give a higher figure that of their population. So that is the problem that Africa faces. Now let me bring it home. There's a group of activists, my friends, I won't mention their names because this is not the best thing to say about them. But last year when the parliament was debating the coffee bill, they took it upon themselves to go to Nsimbi and talk to the people about the coffee bill. So they went there with megaphones, and as they began preaching the ills of the coffee bill, they were shocked that in Nsimbi where they went, Nsimbi, one of the biggest coffee farming districts in Uganda, is it Nsimbi? One of those districts, yes. People there were pro the coffee bill. The people were like, hey, this bill is going to save us. There's a cartel that has made itself the gatekeepers of coffee sale in Uganda. If this bill passes, it breaks that cartel, and then we'll get better bargains. So maybe those people were misled, maybe they were wrong, but the point there is that these guys went there without research. Yeah? If they had researched and found out what is the mood like on the ground, maybe they would have known that we can approach it from another angle. And of course, they were wise enough before they could be lynched to know that, change tactics. So they changed tactics and came back to Kampala. Finally, there is a new political party in South Africa. So South Africa has been known for having those two major parties. The ANC, which has been in power since 1994, and now there is the Democratic Alliance, which gave them a run for their money, and of course there are these other small parties, whether it's the MK or the Malema's party. Economic Freedom Fighters, EFF. But the new party is of the colored people. And that was supposed to be for railway. I'm not saying it's the truth, but yeah, maybe somewhere in the General's report. And that's to understand why Karambaji has an issue with this being held here. But what this gentleman did was that for him, the government in South Africa would say, we have allocated money to a school. And he would wait for 2 years and go to that school and say, was this school built? And 90% of the time they found that the schools were not actually built. Now, he started rallying his activism around that. Early this year, I went to Arua because the Speaker of Parliament said she'd given 200 million to Arua Hospital, and the story is both traumatizing and interesting. So I come from Arua. My father originally comes from Arua, West Nile. So West Nile has had this issue of being not on the national grid. And if you put that if you give that a human face, that meant that mothers would go to hospital and deliver on candlelight, on torchlight, from the very relentlessly working medical team there. But many times, of course, you can't rely on a candlelight or a torchlight, so lives were lost. Now, so in 2022, a group of leaders from West Nile went to the Speaker and they said, there is this problem, we want to be connected to the national grid. The Speaker said, that is a hard thing for me to do, but I can do the simple things. I can give you 200 million, we buy a generator for the maternity ward of Arua Hospital, and we save their lives. Perfect. The Speaker is a mother, right? That afternoon, a member of Parliament from Arua municipality moved a motion on the floor of Parliament to thank the Speaker. And the Speaker is a mother. She cares about lives and everything. And there was all that pomp. I think the New Vision reported this story, Independent magazine, so many magazines put about it actually. The Solar Association of Uganda thanked the Speaker for it as well. Now, I got information that the Speaker had actually not donated the panels. So from 2022, this is 2025. So I went to Arua. And there was literally the most basic research. That you go to the hospital and ask people, do you guys have solar panels? And the truth was that there were no solar panels. So, Agatha, of the vouchers Agatha shared, there was one, in fact, we hosted Christoph Borre, as I finished, the Director of Communications at Parliament, who came to one of our spaces and said, you guys are saying the Speaker gives money wrongly. We get this money because there is bureaucracy in government. So sometimes you need to get the money and run very fast. I got money for solar panels, I'm taking them to Arua next week. When he said that was last year. So the money was given in 2022. He was supposed to take the solars, he didn't take them. So last year again, he used it. So what I'm saying is that the whole basis of the monies you saw during the Parliament exhibition was that there is bureaucracy in government, which I think the Speaker should work with Parliament to address, but they're not addressing, and now they claim that they're addressing it another way. So the long and short of this is that there's a lot of research that we can do even without money, first and foremost. There's basic research you can do. Yeah. If we formed ourselves into maybe say like associations, and we had partners in Kapchora. There's a gentleman from Kapchora here, my very good friend called Mark. There's someone probably from Arua here. There's an MP from PG, Honorable Chiwanda. Like, can we start asking ourselves, was that road built? Was that school built? Was money allocated to that school? How many people are dying? I think that kind of advocacy, as we look for the funds, which seem not to be coming, certainly, The funds will find us along the way. But we can do that work and make a big impact in this country as civil society. So I think research is very critical, and we should look at how we can do it in the cheapest, quickest, but best, and verify the information that we get and then hold leaders accountable. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much, Toko. Someone said that they might have bought virtual solar panels. So we are in the digital age. Now, very finally, before I open to just a few questions in plenary, I know Chris is looking at me badly because the youth have been allocated very little time. So I'm going to go to Sarah and then open to...
The one thing is that you can do nothing when we're here.
No, now we are here and I'm basically in charge as moderator. But no, Sarah, I will come back to you, and you know, Toko raises something important. You do not need a lot of money to do research. You can just walk out of this hotel and see a citizen issue that you could actually raise. So all we need is to care. Have the heart that cares about this, a friend keeps calling it the colonial structure that is Uganda. So just care about that. Now, Sarah, connecting with one of the bit about the money within this convention, and you already said it, you said your organization does not have money, and traditional donor funding continues to sideline young-led organizations. I think it's just a few feminist funders that go out all the way to the grassroots organizations and, you know, the startups. Very, very few of them do. They want 15 years experience. They want you to have like 15 requirements. You know, I will not mention some UN agencies that ask for like a whole file, like your presidential candidate.
Okulaba nti nkutuusaako buli kyonna ekigenda mu maaso wano era nga tutunuulira future ya civil society organizations wano mu ggwanga lyattu Uganda. Buli gye tugenda mu maaso ebintu ebimu bikyuka, weewaawo n'ebintu ebipya ne byeyongera okuba nga ate bimeruka. Kakati omu ku babaddewo mu convention eno omukyala Charity ahimbisibwe amaze okuba nga negattako era nga agenda okuba ayongera okutulamusaako katono nnyo atubuulira ebitiibwa byesobodde kumenya kwasaagala bimenyaamenya mbikolere mu ensobi naye olwokuba nti mwira mu studios kamuwa kazindala asooka atulamuseeko weewaawo atusiigire ekifaananyi ku convention eno nga bwetambudde. Kwaniriza nnyo.
Ndina essanyu lya nsusso era webale kunkomyawo ku ddigi manyi mbaagala nnyo. Bampita Charity Kalebo ahimbisibwe.
Okay.
Ensonga ezituleese wano kwe kwogera ku civil society nga bwe tuli. Tuli tutya embeera ze tuyitamu nga tukola emirimu zaffe. Emirimu zigenda bulungi, tulina ku ssente. Bwe tuba tetulina ssente tugenda kukola tutya. Ezo z'ensonga ezatuleeta wano okwogerezaganyaamuuko. N'ensonga endala akalulu kazze naye ate abamu ku ffe abaasaba observation accreditation tebagifunanga. Kakati tusigazaayo emyezi 2 November ne December nga tukuba akaluluwa mu January either ngaggwako oba nga
January nga 12.
Kakati okirabira ddala nti akaluluko kakoze katya kasembedde. Kati bw'obanga tonnaba kufuna accreditation buli sayini eraga nti togenda kukola ki kugifuna. Kakati ombuziza nti nkola ki bampita ndi executive director owa institute bagiyita Electoral Laws and Governance Institute. Eyo institute eri affiliated to the Electoral Laws and Governance Institute eya Kenya. Kuba tukwatagana mu nsonga ez'okutunuulira frames especially amateeka agakwata ku kulonda gayamba gatya omuntu wa bulijjo okukuba akalulu oba gamuziiza gatya okukuba akalulu. Kuba waliwo amateeka agajja ng'ate go gaziiza naye ate ne wabeerawo amateeka nga go gayamba. Kati amateeka agaziiza era ne ku civil society walabye nti twabadde twogera ku civil society bagiyita NGO Act nti etteeka eryo liyina embeera ezimu lyeriziizaamu civil society okukola emirimu zaayo nga zirina expectations nyingi ze ziteeka ku civil society nti oyina okubeera nga ofulfillinga conditions eza URSB ofulfillinga eza bureau NGO bureau ate ofulfillinga ne conditions eza Financial Intelligence Authority ofulfillinga ne conditions eza URA nga kwegamba ebintu bingi ng'obeera nga ayina okubeera ng'oyina deski ekolera ddala ku bintu eza compliance ate ng'oyina n'emirimu zino eza bulijjo okulaba nti bannayuganda obayigiriza ku nsonga z'okulonda obayigiriza obayambako olabira ddala kyekigenda mu maaso electoral commission ekoze omulimu gwayo tekoze omulimu gwayo naye ng'ate eno oyinayo ne log frames ez'okukola kakati ezo z'ensonga ezatuleese wano ne tusanga nti kiri ekyokugamba nti bangi tebabadde accredited nkikugambye ekirala kyetusanze civil society ezisinga zoogedde ne zigamba tebalina sente
funding yamyumyulwamu
funding yazibuwala kubanga Trump olwatuuka n'agoba USAID era ebyo byonna mubadde mubiraba
oba oliawo abali mu civil society bayingirayo lwa ssente nga tebamanya kyabatwalayo a reason as to why nti funding bwabagimyumyulamu katono nnyo tuvayo ne tukuba enduulu
nedda kakati olumu kizibuwala okukola nga toyina ssente waliwo ebintu ebimu by'obeera oyagala okukola kaŋŋambe kati ng'okugenda ku TV oba radio kati ne wano wali digitalk muyina essente ze muteekamu okulaba nti mu broadcastinga kati ezo ssente muzijjayo mutya singa omuntu gwe muba mukyazizza tayina kyabateekamu oba tayina mugaso gwatadde temumusasuzza oba byayogedde tebiina muwendo ng'abantu tebajja biraba kati omuba mufunirawa kati tewali kati ensi zino bwe zaakyusa mu ndowooza zaabwe kye tuyita foreign policy ne bakendezeza ensimbi ze baali baweereza eno naye ate naffe nga gavumenti eyaffe nayo yali suspicious ku nsimbi ezisinga zino nayo neegoba ku nsimbi ezimu kati ngeza DGF zo zaagobebwa gavumenti naye kati ne tusalawo ne tugamba nti okay esente bwe ziba teziriiwo tugenda kukwasaganya tutya ensonga ne tukkirizaganya nti tuli bantu bagezi nnyo abantu abakola mu civil society tulina amagezi mangi kati nga bwe tulina amagezi mangi tugenda kukwatagana nga tukola kye tuyita partnerships oba okukolagana wamu gwe gy'onsinza amagezi ompabula omulala gy'ansinza amagezi ampabula tutambuze emirimu zaffe nga tuwangana magezi ekyokubiri nti tugenda ku complyinga n'ebisoboka National Planning Authority yatugambye jjo nti bagenza okulaba nga tuyina emirimu ze tukola ezandibayambye ng'era banoonya ne data naye
mukola research
tuyina research mungi naye kye babadde kye baatugambye kye twasanzeemuko obuzibu kwe kutugamba nti balina log frame gye baamala dda okucreatinga nga ffe tulina just to align kakati kiringa okugamba nti nkutaddeko akataala waliwo byenjagala oba ŋŋambe ntya nti oba nga sikwebuuzizaako tomanyi kiriyo
njagala otuule mu kyange
oyina kutuula nze kye nakoledda kati toyina se naye nga nze nkiku impozinzeeko kati ekyo ne tukigaanamuuko ne tumugamba nedda sebo soko tubuulireko log frame eno efaanana etya kiki kye munaaba mutusuubiramuuko era kati okwogerezaganya kukoza kutya kutandise n'ensonga endala eyabadde enkugu ennyo z'ensimbi okugamba nti kati gavumenti etuwa ensimbi kakati twandisanyuse nnyo gavumenti etuwa ensimbi kubanga naffe munnange tetulina ssente
bikyabonaabona n'okusituka ate kati bwebanga funding eri cut off
kati gavumenti netugamba katubawe ssente through what we call NGO fund kati mukwano gwange nze sifuddeeyo tufune ssente za gavumenti naye kankubuuzeeko ebibiina by'obufuzi bwe byamala okufuna essente za gavumenti batandise kubeera batya ensonga zikwatagana bannayuganda bazifaako oba buli omu yenonyeza bibye gwe bw'otunuulira DP eri etya gwe bw'otunuulira ya UPC eri etya
waliwo abakyayimiridde
nze mbuuza gwe mukwano gwange kubanga naawe wooli mu ggwanga weeri ekola etya
eri mu kukola mirimu gyayo wadde tebasimbyewo candidate
kakati emirimu zaayo zeekoze ezikwatagana n'ensonga ezitawanya bannayuganda ze ziriwa kubanga ekiteesaawo ekibiina ky'obufuzi kubeera emmotoka etambuza ensonga z'omuntu wa bulijjo zigonjoolwe gavumenti kati ziriwa kati njagadde olowoozeeko ne ku jeema mukwano gwange Asumani Basalirwa bwe yamala okulya essente za gavumenti kyagenda kitya kati omuntu akusasula kizibu nnyo omusongamu akamwa ne bw'aba akoze obubi kati ffe agenda yaffe si kulwanyaganya gavumenti naye agenda yaffe kuyamba gavumenti okulaba kiki kye tutakoze obulungi kye twandikoze obulungi okuyamba omuntu wa bulijjo
lwaki gavumenti yeyina interpretation nti mulimu kugirwana
kakati gavumenti teyagala nti bagicritizing ng'omwana mu maka maama wange buli sawa nvuma agamba ndi kiwala kibi asiba nvuma buli bwenkeera nvumye maama tanjagala so nga maama akwagala maama ayagala oveeyo ng'oli kiwala kye ekiyina buli kimu
a reason as to why government ali mu kuteekawo amateeka agabalungamya mu nkola yammwe ey'emirimu naye ate mwe mukiraba the other way around.
Erikuteekamu amateeka agatulemesa singa ebadde eteekawo amateeka agatujimbula kyandibadde tekiyina tabu kati nkugambye waliwo amateeka g'embeera ebiri agasobola okukulaakulanya n'ago agasobola okukulemesa okukola kye wandikoze kati gali agalemesa mateeka mabi naye ate gabeera mateeka gabeera weegali ng'olina okugagoberera kakati ekyo kyenkugambye gavumenti eyagala tuboogereko konna ke bakoze akabyo ba corruption tukube engalo bannange mwebale nnyo mulidde ssente z'omuliwo omusolo oba tubisirikire tubimanye naye tusirike nga tetujja kwogera bw'obanga okoze bribery tugambe weebale nnyo mukwano okoze bribery oli wakabi kakati awo ffe nga civil society tekisoboka
naye nati babakirizinga okubeera in bed with government a reason as why ebitongole ebimu ensonga ne bwe ziba nga zinyigiriza bannayuganda nga ye line of work gye balimu obuli awo tebabaako nakyeboogera basirika busirisi
anti ababa baziridde bwe batyo bwe babeera kakati waliwo gye tuyita software ne hardware gyo bw'obanga wakiwuliriza wabaddewo panelist eyagambye nti waliwo abantu abakola ku nsonga entonotono kati ng'ez'amazzi bw'oba okola ku nsonga z'amazzi okutwala amazzi eri bannayuganda ng'oli civil society organization ezo nsonga ntono lwaki tokwatagana na gavumenti byonna mu bikole kubanga tewali nsonga nnene egenda okuleetawo okukontana bw'oba okola kusimba miti environment naye tewaliwo nsonga nnene nnyo egenda okujjawo nti mugenda kukontana naye bw'oba okola mu elekishoni maama wange nze gye ndi bw'oba okola mu governance awo okutte ewali ebbwa eddene kuba ensi yaffe no Uganda gy'olaba yagulibwa ku musaayi ensi yaffe no gy'olaba omusaayi gwayiika ng'egenda kubeerawo era bw'oba okutte ssemateeka gy'atandikira wali agamba tujjukira eri gye twayiwa ki ate tetwagala kukola tutya kakati awo wewali ebbwa ddene teriyiwonanga
naye mukyala Charity mu ddakiika zino ze tusigaza mbe nga ate enkota weyongereyo what's the future of civil society organizations in Uganda bwe kibanga ensonga ez'emulugunyiziddwako munda tezikoleddwako
kakati civil society etudde n'egamba nti dialogue tegenda kuggwawo ne gavumenti kubanga gavumenti tebasobola girwanyisa ekyo tukikkiriza
naye ate mulina kukolera wamu
tulina okukolera wamu ffenna kati wagenda kusigala okubeerawo okwogerezaganya gavumenti etegeere lwaki twogera ensonga zino naye ate ne gavumenti eri gyeri naffe tutegeere lwaki bandiyagadde ne tukola ebintu nga bwe baagala okukola kubanga bo bagamba badrivinga development bwe tusigala nga tukola politics yekka n'ebimu ebitono bye bakoze oluusi tuba tetukola ki tetubiraba.
Okay.
Kati twagala kuwulira bye batugamba naffe bawulire bye tukola ki
bye mbagamba.
Ensonga emu ye future ya civil society. Kubanga wanaabanga tewaliwo kwogerezaganya. Ekituufu civil society bagenda zisiba zonna ezisinga. Kubanga gavumenti ejja kugamba temutuwuliriza bye tukola ki bye tubagamba ate ffe abali mu ki mu buyinza.
Nabadde njogera yesterday n'omukyalo omu n'angamba nti ezimu ku nsonga lwaki civil society ziri mu kuubagana ne gavumenti nti kati ebitongole bingi buli muntu gye yeeyunira so ne gavumenti negana naye bano abeeyunira eno waliyo ki.
Ekyo kyandibadde bwe kityo singa wabadde wakyaliyo ssente. Mu budde obw'emabega essente bwe zaabangawo bwe kityo bwe kyali. Naye mu budde buno essente teziriiyo. Kakati ekyo kyandibadde kyekyo. Essente gye ziri nga ziri ku software ku nsonga ziri ze nkugambye environment, emiti, amazzi egyo ze ziri. Naye mu governance oba ebikwatagana n'ebyobufuzi essente teziriiyo ate teziribeerayo mu budde buwanvu okuva olwaleero. Naye ekinasobola okutaasa civil society n'ekinasobola okutaasa gavumenti okusobola okukwataganyisa ensonga wamu. Nze kye nandiyagadde nga munnayuganda omuntu akoledde ddala mu nsonga zino eza demokrasiya obudde obuwanvu yeddembe. Mwana wa maama eddembe teritegeeza masasi butabeerawo era bw'obanga wawulira nankani oli yakugamba nti ne injustice oba okuwulira nti ngenze mu ddwaliro sifunyeeyo ddagala ate natudde kuva ku makya ngenze gwe genda ku Cancer Institute olaba abantu abebaka wansi olyoka owulira obulumi nga bwe buli singa aba muntu wo ekituufu amaziga gakola ki gakuyitamu gakuyunguula. Ensonga eyo is a governance issue. Ze zino ffe ze twogerako nti bw'obanga olonda omuntu londa omuntu ayina principle ayina value agenda okuleetawo enkyukakyuka enaayamba Uganda yonna ng'eggwanga. Nti bwe baba basalawo eri mu parliament bye badiscussinga nga bikwata ku bannayuganda babisalirengawo munnayuganda omunansi owa bulijjo nga kijja muyamba. Ze ensonga ezituli ku mutima nti wajja kutuukawo ekiseera nga bino byonna ebirabika nga biri rose nga tebiriiwo nga twesanze nga tuli mu kattu nga kati bali abalowooza nti injustice ebadde nnyingi nnyo gye bali bakutte ejjambiya buli omu ali ku munne. Tetwagala kuddayo eyo. Kati bw'oba omanyi nti toyagala kuddayo eyo yagala mirembe watuukawo ekiseera ng'osigala okuba embeekulu anaawulira ajja awulira ajja okulema okuwulira Katonda ajja kumanya nti gwe wakola ogugwo tutuuse wano gye tuli naye baaba wakola ki wagezaako watugamba era walituuka ekiseera ne gavumenti yo yennyini ezuukuka egambe naye bano batugamba ne data wuno ne batugamba byafaanana bwe biti ne batugamba basinziira ku kino okugamba kino.
Thank you so much Chala Charity okutwegatako akatalekeka oba obubaka bw'osiibula nabo.
Kati akatalekeka buli munnayuganda ndaba bambi genda okuba akalulu naye bw'onoobanga ogenza okuba akalulu noonya omukulembeze agenda okuleeta enkyukakyuka ey'abannayuganda bonna si nkyukakyuka enaakolera kibiina kye kyokka nti NRM DP CP Peasants Party oyo kasita omulaba mwewale naye singa omulaba ng'agamba nkolera bannayuganda ng'omuntu wa bulijjo baaba oyo muwakalulu.
neyanza ege mukyala Charity awe bali nnyo kubanga otwegaseeko ndowooza kambe nga ate nkuzaayo butereevu mu hall okukwongera okutuusaako ebigenda mu maaso esayidi eyo nze omumbejja Luwedde Lilian tube nga tetusinkagana mu maaso kaawo.
Pressure that is with us. The Gen Z of today, to be honest and sincere, you cannot compare the pressure you can hold to what we used to hold. We held a very hot pressure, but the Gen Z of today, they are more of theories than practical. But I am not saying that all of us, all the Gen Z are like that, but I'm just cautioning you that, yes, the future is built on the youth, but the youth that do not have the true understanding of what the future is, they become futureless. So I will urge you, as we run to leave this country to be a better place, we need the youth that is resilient, the youth that is progressive, and the youth that is also politically ground, so that you are able to participate in politics, money making, and the law, as we have put them there.
Okay.
And that is what we expect the youth to be of today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. There's just one final hand over there, and then we will come back to the panel.
Good afternoon, everyone. Nora Nakazwe is my name. I have a few comments, maybe questions. One, he has talked about it, the digital spaces. That was one of my points. We have true access to all the digital spaces, medias, ABCD mentioned it. But the question is, what do we do with all those platforms? If you take a look at other platforms, for example, TikTok, people misuse it however much they have access to it. It is no longer important as it used to be when it had just come. We thought it could be maybe for advertising businesses, coming up with the ideas to empower maybe youth, but right now it is quite something different. The second one is, when it comes to decision making within the society, are those youth given the platform to sit on those boards to also make decisions on behalf of those silent majorities that cannot come up to speak? Secondly, you talked about the funding disbursement. What are some of the ways you're looking forward to putting up in place to ensure that funds, when they are disbursed, they really reach the youth, those who are down deep in the villages, maybe in the societies where accessibility is hard? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We will come back to the panel because we're running out of time. Quite a number of questions. I hope the future elders on this panel are going to respond. And as a future elder and current youth, just to note that it is important to also expand the scope of our imagination, because we are in a paperless society. And so sometimes as you speak, we are taking notes on phones. I don't know what elders do with their phones, but for us, we do pretty much, you know, a lot with my phone. On my phone, I attend meetings, I take notes, I write reports, you know, I engage in activism digitally, because right now you cannot march on the streets of Kampala. You know the context in which we are. And so the youth on their phones are actually working. There's a lot of money. I meet all my clients, because I do emceeing. I meet all my clients online. So just to say that, but I'll take it back to my team of experts. And the first question, I'll call Toko to, because I can't imagine Toko being off his phone. Toko, you're going to respond to, one is
can I do two?
Youth are always on their phones.
Yeah, that one?
That one, but it was also in line with, why is it that people from affluent families take long to grow?
So the question about children from affluent families, my only disappointment is that Honorable Chiwanda said his children are 21. I thought he would say even 51-year-old street-like children, but he didn't say that, which is the good thing. So I don't know how that comes into play. But what I think is, a lot of children who are feathered, who are pampered, will not grow up the same way the ghetto kid will grow up. That's what I think. Because I think kids who grow up in the slums, in the villages, they are given more responsibilities. And of course now in this age, there are things like child labor and all that. But many times those things end up making them mature much faster. So probably you should answer that question as a person who grew up the other side and now are raising children who are growing up in another side. The question about youths being lazy and hard to deal with. Now, this is not the first place I'm hearing this.
Yeah.
that otherwise would have them running out to go and pick the phone call. So I think this discussion about generational differences is an important one. It's about understanding each other. When you grow up in a different era, I mean, maybe the difference between me and you is what? Maybe 20 years, and that's a generation, because the generation is about 25 years. So there are things that you're going to see. And there are things, I have 2 children, I know for a fact that if they get to university, they'll probably be coming back home saying, I'm going to that old man who doesn't understand the world anymore. You get? Yet today, I am kind of the guy who understands the world. So I think you need, even the guys you work with at office, maybe engage them. What do they do on their phone? How can they make it more productive? And I think you'll find a solution there. And lastly, someone said...
Parting shot?
Yeah,
parting
30
shot.
seconds. Someone said that young people, he was talking to Chiwanda, that it's now harder to get to politics. That may not be true. There is so much money in politics, I agree, right now. The one with the deepest pocket, in law there's something called the deep pocket theory, carries the day. But the current parliament, as of 2021, when they were taking the oath of office, the median age, I think, was 42. That shows that there are a lot of young people thriving regardless. So yes, there are these challenges, but then the question maybe for people like Shadia and the young people here who want to go into politics is that, can I make it regardless? If it's about money, can I make it not about money? And how would that play out? Maybe you can, maybe you can't, but that's a conversation we can always, something we can think about. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Toko. There was something else to development partners. Please consider youth at the grassroots. And I think we had examples of the partners who are already doing that, and a big thank you. I'm going to go back to you, Lisa. Of course, your parting shot now in just 2 minutes. You know, your final call, if you could challenge any CSO in this room, and this goes to everyone, to make just one concrete change to better partner with the youth and empower them into power sharing, you know, what would that be? Very quickly.
Thank
you.
you.
We wrap up.
Thank you very much. I just want to add a little to the question that Honorable asked. How are we creating, how do we want the elders to leave space for us? And while he asked and he said, you know, we fought for this and all that, what came to my mind was, this is generational trauma. You want to pass it on, you know, that kind of thing. So should we, while you were fighting, what did you want your elders to do for you at that point? So that was what was coming to mind then. And really challenging CSOs, the CSO space, to see how best they can support youth. I would say that there is a need to shift resources and decision-making closer to the youth, the people solving the problems on the ground. But in addition to that, I think during our conversation, you've been able to hear things like intergenerational mentorship, intentional intergenerational mentorship. Get you Toko, get you Sarah, get you Remy or Lisa, and see, fine, how am I building, how am I leaving my legacy with this young person? Because today we are young, in the next number of years, we are not, we're going to be like you. So it's intentional, it should be intentional, and I'm calling upon the CSO leaders and elders to hold our hands. But also in addition to that, we are creating flexible funding and resources directly into our hands. I know trust is the issue. You see young people and you're like, the money may not reach. But is it possible to tier the funding? Is it possible to give it in smaller chunks as we build that trust, but not necessarily blocking us from that? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Lisa, and I'll go over to you, Remy. There's also just one question that you can answer as you wrap up in 2 minutes or less. How are CSOs integrating arts and creativity into activism? I think the panel that was here earlier talked about cartoons and movies and so on. And I know that quite a number of organizations are also doing civic education using MDD. So just very quickly, and then I'll jump over to Sarah for her parting shots as well.
Thank you so much. I will just start by saying that just a week ago, we presented the National Youth Manifesto document that was developed by a coalition of organizations that are active in the youth space to His Excellency, the President of Uganda. And one of the things that was pertinent or was highlighted within the National Youth Manifesto was how we can empower young people in the creative space to be able to have their aspirations realized in the next electoral period. So many conversations have been happening around that discussion, aside from just the implementation of how we civil society organizations engage young people through edutainment approaches, but also at a policy level. So there's a lot that is already happening. And ladies and gentlemen, just like one of the participants mentioned, young people, we are not here to replace anyone. I think that is a very big misconception. It is because you keep pushing narratives like the future is yours that make us feel like when we get there, we don't want to leave, because you promised us that the future we are going for ahead is ours. What we want to hear is that we are the present and we are the future now. We're not waiting for anything that is coming in the years to come. There will be other young people seated on the same panel, just like we are doing right now. And we shall be the ones telling them that we are not leaving because we fought for this space. So I think that needs to change as well. So I would like to challenge all civil society organizations and leaders. Let us hold ourselves accountable to the same standards that we demand from government. If we call for transparency, accountability, inclusivity, and meaningful participation of young people, let us also mirror that. Hire young people and put them in leadership positions. Internship is the bare minimum. Don't hire us because we represent a problem that you're trying to solve. We are unemployed, so we are desperate. No, we are not. The thing is, we need you to believe in us as knowledge bearers, as co-creators of solutions. Give us the platforms. Yes. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Remy. And finally, Sarah, as you do your parting shot, someone asked a question about youth being on boards and whether they have the same power on the board. So do you vote, or are you a passive observant on the board? So over to you, and then your parting shot as well.
All right, thank you very much. I did get that question as well, and a very small secret, especially to our former youth. Now, youth being on your board is such a resource to your board. The demographics are clear. Over 70% of the population are young people, meaning over 70% of the people you're serving are young people. How will you better serve these young people if you don't understand their concept, their context? And who helps you understand their context? The young people on their boards. So don't just bring them there for the pictures, just to fulfill policy. They are going to improve your work. Now, it's not young people to blame, it's the people who are perhaps governing and leading these particular organizations. For me, very luckily, on the feeder board, I make very keen and strategic decisions that I can even point fingers to when I see the impact thereafter. So kindly value the young people on your boards. They are that game-changing strategy, yes? Yes, and then my parting shot, how can CSOs better partner with youth or youth organizations? Now, the best way is partner with them to build them on their journey to sustainability, because youth overly depending on them is going to drain you too. But what if you help them become more sustainable? Perhaps even as you fund their projects, can you fund some capacity, in-depth capacity building, things like perhaps helping them build on their digital tools to make work easier, cheaper, and more efficient? Could you help them perhaps build on their, I love storytelling, build around that capacity as well? So it's very important that CSOs work with youth, partner with.
Georgia added herself 20 minutes, 20 full. Georgia added herself 20 minutes, 20 full minutes, and they're also not honest. They say, please, let's take that good picture. Agatha set a precedent. Yeah, so So, Honorable, the problem you have created for us is that when young people take over, we'll have another 100 years. They also wait for death. If you had started a culture of living, we'd be living very easily, without problems. And Godwin talked about a 51-year-old who was tweeting. I thought it was James. Then I remembered he doesn't know Runyankore, so anyway. At least for me, I can speak the language. At least for me, I can speak the language. Thank you. Thank you very much. Give them a very, very big round of applause. I think we've had a really exciting day. And I see some of you are feeling tired already. But don't be tired. We are just approaching our last lap. I said something earlier and people laughed, but I think this conference, this convention is helping us secure our future and protect the gains. And Honorable Chiwanda would know that. Yesterday he had to run away for a campaign, and I think, did it go well? Are the young people promising the campaign? It was fun. The young people are promising that the Tufaku main, is that? They want us to go? Yeah. But as a member of SEC, I think one of the things you need to deal with, a former member of SEC, but you're still very powerful, is this whole thing of stopping other people from also campaigning. It should stop. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. I think let's just be honest, guys. You can do all you want to do, but let's not do that. It's not fair. Yeah. And we are serious people. So, because when we take over, I mean the Georgians, not me. Me, I'm with you. When we also choose not to. Okay. So we are coming to the last lap of this conversation. And if you check your program, you realize that we have 3 important things to go through. We have an opportunity to listen from the European Union about the opportunities for civil society in the Global Gateway framework. And we have the team leader coordinator for the Global Gateway, Jacob, and I'm going to try and pronounce your name, Horshofer. Did I do well? Jacob Horshofer is going to share with us perspectives and really information about it. The idea about this session is that it's an information session. And you can find as much information about it on different platforms. But we'll have an opportunity for Moses to, because he's interacted with the framework, to just speak to what Jacob would have said. And then the next part of our conversation is going to be about agreeing on some of those ingredients that you saw emerging. And the idea here is that we've had a team that has been picking out some of the thoughts. It might not cover everything that has been discussed, but it will just really summarize some of the issues, some of the messages that we want to put across. So the team is led by Obsobozi Amoti Kangele. He's going to come here and present to us, and then we'll facilitate a few minute session where you provide feedback into that, and we'll improve the document and make it available for everyone. And then we have a closing session, which will be led by the head of the EU delegation, Ambassador Jan Sadak. I think I've also done well on that one. I'm trying to pronounce German names, so please, guys, bear with me. He's not German, yes, so I'm using German as a metaphor. Elizabeth, is that correct? Yeah, okay, good. But there's this German, James Macbeth, who is the GIZ country director. So, he's not German as well. Hey, but Elizabeth, he's Scottish. Okay, I have failed. I need coffee. Let us invite Jacob, and then I'll go and reflect on my notes. Let's invite Jacob to share perspectives on the Global Gateway, and then Moses, get ready. I'll come and facilitate the conversation. Please.
Thank you very much. Welcome to you all. It's an honor to be here. Honorable, all protocol respected. I have been invited today to briefly present to you what the Global Gateway is all about, because I think we can only start discussing about opportunities for civil society organizations in Uganda and elsewhere in the world in the framework of this strategy once we have all a basic understanding of what it is about. And then I'm looking forward to having a discussion with Moses and you, and my colleague Elizabeth is also in the room, and so let's dive right into it. Where do I have to point? This way? All right, so the Global Gateway strategy is the European Union's template to connect resilient, to create resilient connections with the world. These are connections between Europe and Africa and other parts of the world, but also within Africa. And we are speaking about all kinds of connections in terms of transport, digital connectivity, energy, and others. And this strategy is guided by key principles, which are first democratic values and high standards in terms of environmental and social standards. And then we try to promote good governance and transparency around the interventions that we support. Our paradigm is a paradigm of equal partnerships. So we look at our partner country as an equal partner. It's a value-driven model, an ethical model, so we do not want to create unsustainable debt for our partner countries. Our investments are supposed to be as green and clean as possible, taking into account the environmental impact as well as climate change resilience, climate change scenarios. Security focused, when it's, for instance, about digital connectivity, we want to make sure that these connections we build are secure, or if we develop governance IT systems, we want to make sure that they are secure against attacks from outside. And then all those investments are supposed to catalyze as much as possible private sector investments, because as you know, the infrastructure investment gap for sustainable development cannot be met alone through development funding. We need the private sector to come in. Global Gateway investment priorities are, as I mentioned already, the digitalization, climate and energy, so we are looking at renewable energy investments, transport, the health sector, but here we are looking at the health sector from a capacity to produce critical vaccines and medicines locally. So in Uganda currently we don't have an example, but in Rwanda the EU supported the construction of a vaccine production facility so that critical vaccines can be produced on the continent. Education and research, the Global Gateway is also about having research exchanges and ensuring access to quality education, especially for women and girls, because as I will show soon, it's a very holistic approach. And then we are looking in Uganda also with a lot of interest at the water sector, so the provision of water to the society and the productive use of water. And we are also looking at the mining sector, because it's one of the key sectors that is underlined in the National Development Plan 4, and so it has a huge development potential, but you have to do it right to ensure that it has a sustainable development, a positive impact on the local communities, and at the same time the European Union is interested to source critical minerals from partner countries where they are produced in line with our standards, so environmental and social standards. We are not talking about infrastructure only, so not only hard investments, but we are talking about the entire enabling framework, enabling environment to deliver those projects, and also to offer business-friendly conditions around it, regulatory framework and skills. So this brings me to the 360 degrees approach, as we call it. So here you can see the principles that I mentioned, so democratic values and high standards, good governance and transparency, etc. And around it, you can see that we are looking at the entirety when it comes to working with local authorities, working with civil society organizations, the rule of law, the regulatory reform, employment and youth, so skilling and education, technology transfer, research and development, gender equality as well. So it's a very holistic approach. You have an investment And around that, you work on the regulatory framework of the sector. When you invest in energy, you want to make sure that the communities who have access to the energy are at the same time accompanied to make productive use of the energy, so livelihoods, etc., etc. So for Africa, we are aiming to mobilize 150 billion euros in investments. And of course, this is not the European Union institutions alone. This is the European Union and its 27 member states, many of whom have been here this morning, I heard, at the ambassador level, and also all the development financing institutions of our European member states and the European Investment Bank. So it's a Team Europe approach. And then, of course, we attract with our investments as much as we can private sector funding. So the figure announced includes those private sector funding that is mobilized, both from Africa, but it can also be from other parts of the world and Europe. And it's not grants only. We combine grants with loans. We provide guarantees on those loans so that they are de-risked, and yeah, we try to attract as much as we can additional financing. So in Uganda, what we have currently ongoing, and this is just a selection, we are currently finalizing the support package for the rehabilitation of the Nalu-Balekira hydropower plant system, which is the cheapest source of electricity in the country at the moment, and it needs rehabilitation. With this investment of 170 million euros, we are going to give it another lifespan of at least 30 years so that it can provide sustainable energy to the Ugandans for the next decades to come. Then we have a last mile electrification program where we combine grants and loans as well to provide access to the national electricity grid in more than 33 districts, looking also in particular at vulnerable communities, refugee settlements, etc. Then we have just approved the South Sudan-Uganda energy interconnector, which is almost 300 kilometers of transmission lines between South Sudan and Uganda. As you know, Uganda has a high electricity production capacity, and by connecting it to its neighbor, this electricity can be shared, can be sold, etc. Then we're looking at productive infrastructure. So here we are speaking about trade facilitation with South Sudan and DRC. We have one flagship program that many of you probably have already heard about. It's to build wash facilities in schools, where we work with the Germans and the Belgians to provide wash facilities in many schools in the country so that young Ugandans have a better access to inclusive quality education. And last but not least, we have the EU-Uganda Forest Partnership, which looks at the governance of the forestry sector and all forestry-based value chains, including the timber industry. And with this support, we want to address also the issue of deforestation and support restoration efforts. And here we are working together with Denmark. And yeah, you can see, sorry, I forgot to mention, so the South Sudan-Uganda Power Interconnector is with the African Development Bank, and the last mile electrification and the Nalu-Balekira hydropower plant is together with France. And for Nalu-Balekira, we also have the European Investment Bank. So you can see it's a Team Europe approach, and it's already alive and kicking in Uganda, and there's much more to come. What are the opportunities for civil society organizations under this strategy? So on the one hand, civil society organizations can contribute actively to the planning and implementation of those investments. On the one hand, as you know, all of those investments, they have to consult the community and they have to ensure that the communities participate. So to ensure that this part of the planning is inclusive and that the communities are represented in those consultation mechanisms and decision-making processes, it is important to work with civil society organizations. As you know, there are obligations to have a community development agreement for certain investments or a free prior informed consent. Then there are accompanying programs for project-affected persons. So when, for instance, a road is constructed, sometimes people have to be resettled, compensated, and there are also livelihood restoration programs to ensure that this is done as less harmful as possible. So we have an example which is called the No One Worse Off project in Uganda, where we have done this in the past. Then, of course, local authorities are key to the planning process, and many of you work with them very closely. So we want to ensure local ownership of the projects and that it is fully aligned with the local development plans, and their civil society organizations can play a very important role. Then, as I mentioned before, skilling, employment, and youth is key to this strategy. On the one hand, we have a lot of complementary training and vocational education programs to develop the skills that are needed around an investment. So we want to make sure that when an investment happens in a very rural area, there's as less need as possible to bring labor from elsewhere, so that the people around the project can be trained so that they can work in the project or provide services or goods to it. And of course, it's about creating decent jobs for local communities. There are also a lot of livelihood programs that are complementary to these investments, especially when we speak about energy and water. As I mentioned before, we want to make sure that the energy reaches the people not only to light their homes and to charge the phones, but that they have support to use the energy productively to create livelihoods. The same for water, especially in irrigation purposes and others for agriculture. And then for youth, an example is the youth involvement and facilitation of relevant youth-led incubators that address social, green, and digital solutions and entrepreneurships in the communities that we intervene in, or the communities that we reach together with the authorities with the electricity. And last but not least, and then I'm already looking forward to the discussion, civil society organizations are key when it comes to governance, rights monitoring, and compliance with environmental and social standards and governance standards. So on rights monitoring, civil society organizations play a role to safeguard human rights, to document abuses, to communicate about them, to safeguard labor rights, gender equality, non-discrimination, environmental justice, and social safeguards in general when those investments are done. And for governance and accountability, it's about transparency and accountability, and we already heard it in the session before. It's not only the public sector, it's also about when we, as development partners and civil society organizations intervene, we also have to live up to those standards, and we want to provide oversights. And then you already mentioned it, civil society organizations contribute to regulatory reforms, policy dialogue in areas such as rule of law, anti-corruption, fiscal transparency, inclusive governance. An example on the inclusive governance are, for instance, mining projects where the mining companies have to pay royalties to the communities, and those royalties are supposed to be managed participatorily. So the community should have a system in place, and here civil society organizations can come in to manage those royalties, to decide jointly where to put the funds. And for environmental and social governance standards, and independent monitoring is key. So civil society organizations are like a watchdog when it comes to infrastructure.
Weewaawo nga bwe tweyamye okulaba nti tweyongera okubatuusaako ebigenda maaso waneeno ku National Civil Society Organizations Convention 2025. Tuli mu kuba tooki mu biseera eby'omu maaso eby'ebitongole by'obwannakyewa mu ngeri gye bakolamu emirimu gyabwe, weewaawo nga tweyongera okufuna aboogezi ab'enjawulo okwongera okutangalizaamu biki bye bajje mu nda eyo mu ssetteeserezo oba ensonga we zigenda okuba nga wezigenda maaso n'okubanga zoogerwako sorry era nga maze okubanga neegattibwako omugenyi mukadde kano nze Omumbejja Luwedde Lilian tugenda kwatambula mukadde kano ffenna naye nga neegattiddwako Honorable Godfrey Kiwanda Suubi. Kakati bwe twogera ku bitongole bwe bwannakyewa tetusobola kuleka gavumenti wabbali olw'ensonga nti buli omu akebera munne mu nkola y'emirimu. Weewaawo amaze okubanga neegattako okubanga ate ogerezeganya ku nsonga ezo. Saagala kulambulira nnyo bitiibwa mbikoleremu ensobi ate nga asobola okubitumalirayo waali amaze okubanga atwegattako. Nkwaniriza nnyo Honorable.
Mbalamusizza nange mukwano gyange aba TikTok. Okusoma bankyogedde bulungi.
Bwebwo wennyini mu butuufu bwakyo.
Ate era nebaza even this arrangement eriwo esobozesa abantu okutuuka ku bantu kubanga ennaku egiya waffe kubanga enswa bwekyusa amaaso naawe okyusa envubo Luwedde mukubye taamu talabanga ku nswa naye enswa kiba kiswa bwe kiba kitandika okubuuka kati omakinga sure mwekibuukira ge bayita amaaso kati amaaso ago enswa mweziva so bwe gaba gakyuka ne gadda sayidi emu naawe kati kibayita envubo mwe ziba zigwa so kati bwolaba nga amaaso gaali sayidi eno
naawe envubo olina
ogikyusa gye gadda kati tekinologiya nga bwali amaaso gagenda gakyuka kati bannayuganda tusobola kukuumira nvubo mu pointi kati kyobalaba tulina organization nga no TikTok nti zituyambako abantu okubatuusaako amawulire katole mbadde live wano kuva jjo nga mbalaba and that is very important so njagala kwebaza this technology.
Weewaawo kambe nga ate nkubuuza ekibuuzo kino tuloke tweyongereyo nti olunaku olwaleero mu lukuŋŋaana luno oyitiddwa mu kitiibwa ki?
Kakati nze mbampise wano okusooka my current deployment now nze chairman wa National Consultative Forum. National Consultative Forum, it is a forum for all the registered political parties in Uganda. Bw'osoma Constitution Article 71 subsection 2 eyogera ku National Consultative Forum. Okuva twagenda mu nkola y'ebibiina ebingi nga tumaze okuva mu nkola y'omugendo twadoptinga mu 2005 twadoptinga constitution yaffe ne tuembracinga political parties kati constitution egamba nti wanaabangawo omukago ogugatta ebibiina byonna eby'ebyobufuzi kati bw'osoma mu Political Parties and Organizations Act liteeka eriteeka ebikwatagana n'ebibiina by'ebyobufuzi lyogera nnyo ku National Consultative Forum kati mu National Consultative Forum buli kibiina eky'ebyobufuzi kiweerezaako omubaka omu akola ng'omukiise kati mu Uganda ebibiina ebyewandiisa okuvuganya mu byobufuzi biri 27 so that's the forum however the law egamba nti nekisooka membership yonna kati awamu the Attorney General is a member of the National Consultative Forum. The Chairman Electoral Commission is a member of the National Consultative Forum. Ate ne Secretary of Electoral Commission abeera member wa National Consultative Forum. So as we talk now, it's a 30 membership forum. Each political party is represented by one person. Then I represent National Resistance Movement on the forum. National Unity Platform is represented by Honorable Benjamin Katana. Benjamin Katana is the National Treasurer wa NUP. Naye ate era yabakiikirira ku National Consultative Forum. Actually by law, ela by practice, he's my vice. I'm the chairman, he's the vice. Why? It's because me, I represent the party that has the highest number of members in the House. And that is the constitution of the government. Mbaka alibanga akiikirira ekibiina ekisinga ababaka abangi mu parliament yabanga ssentebe. No, of course now it's NRM. Yes. As usual. Kati naye ate nebaga nti ate omubaka anaabanga akiikirira ekibiina ky'opposition ekisinga ababaka abangi mu parliament yanaabanga vice. So as I talk, I'm the vice chairperson of the National Consultative Forum. I'm the chairperson and the Katana is vice. So the committee, and that is the executive, by the way. The rest are members. The rest are members. Because tulina ko business committee tunani bere bye tukola mingi. Kati tukola chiffe. Ekisooka omulimu gwaffe nga forum eno kwe kunyweza kye tuta code of conduct. Empisa code of conduct for political parties and organizations. Eneeyisa political parties zoogera ki yes ebintu nga hate speech bitukwatako ffe nga forum yaffe abantu abanyigiriza mu bibiina bwe abonosanga omuntu ng'ali mu kibiina naye ng'atanyigirizibwa asobola okujja okufuna obuweerero gye tuli netwogera n'ekibiina because ekibiina kyonna nga tekinawo ba license kisooka kuwaayo mateeka gekitambulirako kati lwobera nga tewatambulidde ku teeka liwateeka mu National Consultative Forum then tukuvunaana nti bamemba wabagamba oti so you would link to Ugandans n'obakkiriza ekibiina kyo naye togoberera mateeka gewatuwa so that is ekyala nti tulwanirira eddembe lya buli ssekinnoomu ne buli kibiina singa kiba kinyigiriziddwa kyagala kiri mu campaign tebakikiriza campaigninga so National Consultative Forum comes with a voice to defend such a political party. Ate n'okukumaakuma bannaffe nga bwe nagamba ekiri nti nno okuba nti tugerera amateeka n'ebiragiro olw'okusigala nti ggwanga laffe tulyagala okusigala nga lirimu emirembe even when nga tulina kala za njawulo nze nyinza okuba nga ndi wa NRM katananga wa NUP FDC DP naye tulina Uganda eryemu so we must see how do we guard tusobola tutya okuuma eggwanga lyaffe given tulina differences naye tulina ebirikowa so National Consultative Forum is the most Ugandan organization because each political party is represented by only one teringa bola parliament ne bonobera ngo oli member parliament omuwe ekibiina ekimu ogera mu parliament abina ale nga bali bina so what do you want to change tulina kyo sobola kuchoose naye ffe waffe buli kibiina is represented by only one person. So that's the organization that I chair. So address me as the chairman, National Consultative Forum.
So ndi mubitiibwa wali wennyini nnyini ndigonja waakalira ndoza lwe limu olutuufu. Okay. Olukuŋŋaana luno obwewaawo olutabye ebibiina ebitongole by'obwannakyewa ebyenjawulo wabaddewo olunaku olw'eggulo era kyamukisa mulungi n'olunaku olwaleero obaddewo naye kiki ekyenkizo ky'olabye mu lukuŋŋaana luno oba oliawo bwe tuba tutandikira tuketudde ku nsonga
nebyenkizo ndowooza ndabye nga bisatu ebipya gye mbadde ekisooka okusinza ku statement ya minister wa internal affairs yagambye nti tuli wano okusooka okulaga ebibiina nti si balabe we are not enemies nekya tetuvuganya gavumenti tevuganya na bitongole bya bwannakyewa tebali mu lutalo muyinza okuba temuli mutalo naye nga muvuganya like at home muyinza okuba omukyala n'omwami nga mwenna weemuli ono asoma n'onasoma but you are not in competition we are in complementary you do a complementary role to bring out a family so nakola ki to bring out a family so at this time the family is called Uganda kati government n'ebiina by'ennakyewa bituula wamu ne bireeta omwana ono gwe bayita Uganda ne bimukuza Dr. Muvawala bwe yadde ayogera jjo yakugambye nti bw'olaba ssente ezijja mu NGOs n'ebitongole by'obwannakyewa ziri between 40 to 50% ku ssente eziyingira mu ggwanga naye ssente ezisinga teziri accounted for teziri mu planning authority tezimanya bayita buli ssente ne bagenda bakola emirimu w'ekimirimu egimu nga tegimenya mateeka naye there is suspicion nti bano tetwagala batutegeere nabalina bagana ffe twagala mutegeere so bw'osanga mmene ng'eyagala buuza naye mwaleeta ssente mmeka kati
era zaali
zaaki NGO forum egamba oba aba civil society bagamba ssente muzaaga zaaki tukoze mu bantu omulimu tukyusiza abantu tusomeseza abantu however yo government egamba nti naye ate problem eriko nti muyinza okuba nga kyemukola ne government ekikola so we end up nga tuduplicating nga singa tuba tuplaningidde wamu we can have a better way ey'okuyutilizinga ssente zino so mwe eza government muziraba naye ezammwe tetukola ki tetuziraba. So that's where there is some okuteekawo amateeka ago ng'amateeka ekiruubirirwa kyago kuba nti there's that coordination wabeewo enkolagana ate n'engeri gye tusobola okutwalamu ffenna awamu omwana ono gwe tuyita Uganda gwe tukuza.
Naye nate amateeka gano ebitongole bino bicomplaininga nti gayingiridde nnyo enkola yaabwe ey'emirimu. Ne weesanga nti abaali badde bakola kino mwagala nnyo tweyanjule ne ku ggumba erisembayo nti ne bw'obanga ofunye grant nga yakatuuka bweti ojja tambula ne concept note yo gitwalire bank obategeeze nti bannaye concept note yange yeeno mulimu kino na kino sente zenfuna za kino na kino ebyo byonna byonna ebibuuzo nti biyitirivu nnyo ekiteetaagisa so nga ate bwe mbanga nkutegeeza nti ngenda funa grant bweti ne bweti lwaki oyagala olondoole paka ku sente gyensembayo okufuna nga nze ekitongole
kubanga nazo sizizo sente ezo zewafunye z'Abannayuganda and there is a custodian wa Uganda called government.
Yes.
Kati custodian wa Uganda gwe bayita government alina okumanya because why do you think nti oyagala osange omwana wange ku ssomero omuwe sente zonna z'oyagala muwala wange omusanze ku ssomero oyinza okuba tolina motive yakuba kyomukola naye oyagala muwa sente zonna one oyinza omufuula too expensive gyendi.
Yes.
Oyinza okuba wakamuwa zino nga tojja kusobola kumusustaininga katulina okutegeera plan bubanga wamuwadde million ku luno are you going to maintain that million even after?
Okay.
Kati bwoba ogimaintaininze zigenda kubeerawo zitya okiraba so kati ekiriwo kiri nti government kyeyagala kyeriko kwe kumanya nti kyompadde kiri nsobola okigoberera abantu basobola okikolako accountability kubanga the child code Uganda gwe tuko-owninga gwe nange gwe lwaki kubanga yenigyo budget ya Uganda esomebwa netegeera n'okutegeera sente nga bwe zingidde lwaki yo teyandyagadde nti ze zingidde ewaabwe gavumenti ezitegeere kubanga eziri mu government budget esoma ne mumanya mu ministry ya energy tesembwe ziti zino zigenze mu gender zino zigenze mu balema zino zigenze mu kino era ne mukiraba ne tu implement kanta kuno tusobodde ku implement maybe bitundu 7 ku buli 10 kati omuntu asobola okubuuza nti gwe lwaki obanga tuli partners lwaki olowooza nti gwe sandi tegedde one bwe mbanga sagadde kutegeera ninza okulowooza nti there are two things ekisobola okubaawo that maybe your contribution is so insignificant to the point that I don't need to know.
Naye ate ffe tuziba ebituli bino oba olyawo gavumenti byetasobodde kubanga ekolako waliwo ebyetaago bannayuganda oba olyawo byebaali badde beetaaga bye batasobodde kubanga bafuna okweempowering abavubuka okuwa bannayuganda bangi emirimu naye ate era gavumenti esigala eraba ebitongole bino byebwannakyewa nga rivalries mu nkola y'emirimu
anti kyekyo yakyenagamba eruri nti rivalries zimu eyo evaawa it's more of endowooza ow'ekibiina bamubuuza nti zabadde sente mmeka ye alaba nga rival omubuuzaako ki sente zange ze nagenda e Germany nenzireeta kati jjukira ate noo naye gwogaana naye agamba no but this person called Uganda tumudevelopinga ffenna so kati there is that rivalries mu nze ndowooza weetandikira naye with this organization nga gye nalabye eggulo civil society organization ezijja zonna ne bagana banawamu nze ndowooza that rivalryism is soon ending.
Okay. Ebitongole by'ebwannakyewa bisobola bitya okukolaganira wamu ne gavumenti nga tewali kuubagana oba kusikangana muguwa naye nga buli omu akola kyalina okukola gavumenti echeckinga civil society organizations civil society organizations zicheckinga gavumenti
nekirina kutandikira mu bwongo abantu ne bamanya because the whole thing is about perception. Okuba n'olwaleero omuntu ayinza okulowooza lwaki Uganda Revenue Authority yandyagadde okumanya bye nasuubudde mbaga banjagaza ki olwo abantu balowoozanga emabegako abantu baali bagaana n'okwewandiisa ku ndagamuntu okusooka ndagamuntu bajja kutegeera gavumenti ekugoberere ebikwatako byonna until when it became so tough buli munabyanga ayagala endagamuntu time waliwo emabegakaawo obaali bakolera ku registration abalimi b'emmwanyi mu registering anaga nti muwagala okuturegistaringa mutandika okutujjako omusolo. It's about ndowooza ne perception eriwo buli lweyeyongerayo yesinza okuleeta ebirowoozo ebifaanana bwe bityo. Teri muntu yeesigamu ne NGO tezeesiga ono nono teyeesiga ono. So kati ekyo kisobola kumalibwawo. One with information flow oba babeerewo enjogerezeganya bulijjo. Number 2 wabeewo okugabana transparency ebeerewo obwerufu bubeerewo side zombi. Number 3 these constant meetings nga zino interactions oba kufaana bwe butyo bubeerewo bwogeraganye. So nze ndowooza ebyo byonna bwona obigatta ojja kubeera nti buli obubuuzo obadde busigaddewo bungi bujja kusigala nga buva.
Naye nzanyo honorable kubanga onegaseko mu kaseera kano naye akatalekeka kali kamubwe kati NRM 2026 mu protecting gains oba ebyo byemusobodde okukola mu bbanga lino ery'emyaka 39 mwenge ekibiina mweteeseteese muta because opposition egaludde ereese bingi nnyo oba oliawo byeri mu kugamba bannayuganda kyanjawulo ki ku luno NRM kyerina?
No, ekibiina kiwangula kirina ebintu bina. Ebintu bina tubisinze ebibiina byonna. Ekisooka candidate. Ekibiina ekisookerwako if you are to win an election you must have the good candidate. Candidate waffe toyina gwe mu comparinga nabo ne bakandidate bonna omusambo ogusigaddewo mu bumanyirivu mu kumanya kyayogerako. With that experience none of the 7 candidates beats President Museveni. Ekyokubiri ye message. We have the best manifesto for a common person.
Naye ebiri mu manifesto eno byennawuliddeko biringa ng'era byerimu ebize byogerwako ebbanga lya myaka 39.
Anti kati bw'oba mu manifesto ng'oyogera ku nguudo ng'oyogera ku luguudo oluva Emityana okugenda e Hoima oba mwayo buva e Busunju ogenda e Hoima oba oluva Emityana ogenda e Mubende era lusigala luguudo. Tolina kigambo kyakye tugenda kukozesa. Twogera ku nguudo twogera ku mafuta twogera ku ki era byebiriwo ebyenfuna by'eggwanga. Twogera ku macroeconomics twogera ku microeconomics era byebiriwo. Even in America era jojja okusangayo tetugenda we are not going to create rocket science. To improving ko ebiriwo. Ekyokusatu kye tusinga bano tubasinga organization nti tulina obukulembeze okuva ku buli kyalo paka ku national and that is teamwork. Tosobola kuwangula kalulu kali national unless ngulina that structure because abantu they have to balina okubanga you know you obakuma okola ki. Yes, and about strategy we couldn't say so much about resources. Buli muntu wanzo kwanga lwa resources but our candidate message teamwork and strategy ebintu ebyo bina bitufula okuba tugenda kuwangula akalulu kano akabiri 26.
Weewaawo nsaba nnyo nsobola okukukyazaako nga akalulu kawedde tuddemu emboozi eno because akadde tekatusobozesezza tweyanza nnyo tweyanzege naye obubaka bwo bw'osiibula nabwo.
Obubaka bwe nsuubula n'abantu bannayuganda kwe kumanya nti we have plan B mu buli kintu. Tuna plan B mu nkola y'emirimu nti guno bwe gugaana nkola guno. Tulina plan B n'engeri gye kukola mulimu gwenza nti kino bwe kigaana okutandikawo kijja kutandika plan B weti. But we don't have a country called plan B eya Uganda. Buli muntu yenna alina kyakola. Oyinza okuba nga oli political activist. Oyinza okuba oli wa media nga bw'oli wano luwedde. Oyinza okuba nga oli wa TikTok nga TV yaffe eno the digital TV andi. Buli muntu alina kyokola. Oyinza okuba oli musirikale ng'otulaba. Oyinza okuba nga gwe okulembedde gwe weesimbyewo oli ki manya. We have to protect a country called Uganda. Byoyogera byokozesa emmundu eyo gwe ng'oli mu sirikale wa poliisi uniform eyo byogikoleramu manya nti tulina okusigala nga tukuumya eggwanga lyaffe. Eggwanga bwe lituggwako tetulinayo ddala ggwanga lye bayita Uganda. Oyinza okuba gwe nga ku family gw'oliko ina passport it will be very difficult for you okulowooza nti ojja kutikka bazaddewo bonna ne baganda bo bonna obajje wano. So what we need to do, let's act responsibly. to protect our country.
Emirimu
gy'abaana baffe gisigalewo. Museveni oyinza okuba tomwagala naye ajja kutuuka ekiseera era ajja kuvaako. Ne Uganda is here to stay. Nze mbasaba weewe ekiseera tokola bitakusaana. Tukusaba w'ekitiibwa eggwanga lyaffe lisigale nga weeriri even when ne oba gwe tuwangudde ng'omuntu.
Weewaawo tweyanzege Honorable Godfrey Kiwanda Suubi ate kambe nga nkuzaayo munnange eri ebiteeso gye biri mu kuva ate tube nga tukomawo oluvannyuma.
For example, participating when they are seeing the hardware, whether infrastructure and the like, where will be the citizen? When we talked about the opportunities for CSOs, I was like, are the citizens in this approach so that they use their, like, if a contract is going on, it is a very huge infrastructure or something, are the citizens monitoring, for example, monitoring the contracts using maybe whatever approach, or are they using any kind of them getting involved to own, to know what is going on? That's the kind of thing I was thinking about, like how we are using contract monitoring systems as CSOs, some of us, or citizens feedback platforms to monitor some of these things. Do we, in this gateway approach, do we see more citizens involved?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I wanted to know that. Thank you very much.
Dickens?
Yeah, with all due protocols. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, at least now we are awake. My name is Dickens. I work for Lango Civil Society Network. When Jacob was presenting, I was keenly listening, and he said that in Uganda, their major investments are in critical raw materials and water. But also went ahead to explain, like the rehabilitation of Nalubale dams, South Sudan Road, construction, wash facilities at schools, and EU-Uganda forest partnerships. My simple question is, one, has these projects you have mentioned started? Two, we have had recently surveys, I don't know how they call it, the geo surveys on the minerals in Uganda. What?
Those ones.
Geological mapping.
Yeah, those ones.
Yes. So, areas of Langwa and Karamoja have been mapped as areas with minerals. Do these minerals, like oil, fall under critical raw materials you are targeting? Two, how can we, the civil society, access you people to start working on these areas that you have mentioned that we can intervene in directly?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I will take Musa and then come here.
Again, thank you, Isoba and others, Doctor, for highlighting the software and the hardware. And I guess our EU representative, you need to sit down with the sector players. Even if you started to buzz with your neighbor Isoba for advice in terms of programming in that regard. Because many people don't want to fund software, it's not seen. They want showbiz, they want to take pictures. That's why a member of parliament can buy an ambulance even if there is no medical personnel to attend to a patient. Because it is seen, it's form of advert. One will donate an ambulance and said donated by honorable so and that's support and votes for the next election. So let's rethink, because that may lead to collapse of civil society sector. Isoba asked a very pertinent question that who is supported by Chinese financing here, and I didn't spot any hand. I'll leave it at this. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Erik van der Zanden from the Sankara Peace Foundation. And we will look at the relationship between Africa and Europe for hundreds of years. It was mainly about competition, colonialism, sense of supremacy. So if we look to the future, especially when we talk from civil society and the shared deep values of freedom we both aspire, both in Europe and Africa, what will be a way to create a truly sustainable and equal friendship where potentially Europe and Africa united could even become the core or the new center of democracy in the global scene? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And finally, Agnes.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Thank you, Jacob and Moses. You know, this part of the world, I don't know where else, names are very critical because they speak volumes. So we are not just having names. If you engage Moses there, he can tell you what Isova means. So the Global Gateway, it's a very interesting name if you want to philosophically think through what names can actually mean. But also in your presentation, Jacob, you talked about the relationship, that this relationship in this project is going to be on the principles of partnerships. I really wanted to get a clear definition of the role of the government of Uganda, the role of the people of Uganda, and perhaps the role of the civil society which you have tried to share. Because then these roles determine the quality and the scope of the partnership, I do believe. So I wanted to know, and such that we know that this is what government of Uganda puts on the table, this is what the people of Uganda put on the table, and perhaps we shall renegotiate as civil society what we feel we can put on the table, and then see how we negotiate the whole scope and definition of this so-called partnership. The other comment that I have with your presentation, and I think I'm boring people, is this. I'm getting tired of getting to being in spaces where our roles are co-opted as civil society. They are talked about fondly, but nobody comes down to say, because of this role, we are, by design, allocating 30% to this. I would be very happy to walk out of this room knowing what a percentage of that whole cost of the Global Gateway is actually thought through and designed or designated to the works that you have elaborated that you would wish the civil society to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So we'll have Moses as, I don't know whether there are responses or maybe thoughts since you're not the EU, and then the EU will respond and make final comments. Okay. So Moses, please go ahead.
Thank you. I think it's really very evident that this information session needed more time, and perhaps we need to see how we can provide this information out there. I think my intervention was more of a critique, and perhaps I can even offer another critique even now, that we should be asking ourselves, is Global Gateway money new money or the same money? Because the Global Gateway is funded by what we call NDICI, the Neighborhood Development and International Cooperation Instrument. And I think many of us have actually felt that it's important maybe to separate the funding of the Global Gateway from NDICI. Because the Global Gateway is a 2021 initiative, and by the time it came underway, the Ndiki programming was already on, and money allocated, 30% to be for climate, 10% for migration, maybe another 20% for ODA, for human development. So when you talk about Global Gateway and being funded by Ndiki money, you literally sucking money that was meant to be for these three: climate, migration, and ODA. And this is the money that is now going in infrastructure development.
Yeah.
How I wish Global Gateway was actually new money. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be new money.
Yeah.
And I think it would be very good that we're able to separate Global Gateway to be funded separately from Ndiki.
Thank you. Thank you, Moses. Finally?
Thank you very much for all those important questions and comments. I will try my best within the remaining time to react on the most important points. Maybe first, let me clarify, it's not a project, it's a strategy to guide our work. So it's actually, what do we as the European Union have to offer? What is our competitive advantage compared to other partners? And one of the key competitive advantages that I mentioned are the standards and the holistic approach that we have around the investment. So compared to others, we are looking at highest environmental and social standards, trying not to create unsustainable debt for our partner country. I mean, the loans that Team Europe is providing to partner countries are really, really highly favorable compared to domestic borrowing or borrowing from others. So it's really these principles that are the competitive advantage, and it's not a project, it's a strategy to guide our work in the partner countries. So yes, on the last point, we are not doing anything in addition to what we have already foreseen, but we do it differently. We guide our work in that sense that it's clear to us internally and to the rest of the world what is our offer for our partner countries. And let me stay here with the partner countries. So, I mean, these are Ugandan projects funded by the European Union and Team Europe. These are not our projects, these are your projects that we base on the National Development Plan and that we design jointly with your authorities, and it goes through all the national consultation process and planning process as it's foreseen in the national regulations. It depends on the partner country. Every partner country has different systems, and the implementers are the partner country when it concerns public infrastructure. So Nalubalikira hydropower plant is of course the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development who is going to implement this, and so this is the role of the partner country. The partner country and us, we are doing this together as partners, and the partner country is in the driving seat when it concerns public investments. But of course, when we work with the partner country, the funding and everything around it, the procurement process, the planning process, the implementation, everything has to be up to our standards. So it's through this that we also push our partners to work in the way that I described. So yeah, as citizens, meaningful participation, I think it's where I mentioned that we want to have local ownership, we want to have communities to be represented in the consultation mechanisms, especially when it comes to a project where we have so-called project-affected people. It's very important to go out to the communities and to consult them and to work with them jointly to mitigate the impacts that the project may have on them and to make sure that they get most out of it. And I think here civil society organizations play the role that I mentioned, because yeah, you have to have often civil society organizations to ensure that the vulnerable and the minorities are represented in those processes. Trade, yeah, I mean, we are one of the biggest trade partners of Uganda. trade is part of our relationship. It's in our DNA. More than 70% of Ugandan coffee is exported to the European Union. We are your biggest client on your excellent coffee, and you have a trade surplus with the European Union. That means that you gain out of this relationship, and this is perfectly fine. It's our contribution to your development in the agro sector, and this is a mutual beneficial relationship. So when we can facilitate trade, we do this. We have some projects on standards of products so that they can be exported. We have some projects that look at single border posts to facilitate the crossing of borders. So there is a lot on the trade agenda. It's part of the enabling framework. And of course, infrastructure plays a role when it comes to trade, when it's about transport especially. So yeah, someone mentioned some projects that we are looking at. I mean, on the critical raw materials, it's not on the list because it's just starting. We have a pilot with the Belgian development agency Annabelle, where we look at community participation around mining projects and the management of royalties that will go to them. We have the Human Rights for Business project that is looking at the human rights aspects and the ESG standards in the mining sector. Oil is not a critical mineral for us. We want to decarbonize our economy. Critical raw materials, I think they have a fairly widely recognized definition of being those minerals that you need for renewable energies and digitalization. But of course, every country has certain minerals that they look at with particular interest. And then we have an exchange partnership between the Slovenian Geological Survey and the Ugandan Geological Survey to build the Ugandan institutional capacities on geological sciences. And this also includes a newly graduate program for young Ugandan geological scientists to gain practical experiences. So there is a lot going on, but there is not a big flagship project on critical raw materials. It's more about the ecosystem around the mining sector, the regulatory framework where we are working with GIZ very closely on, for instance, defining minimum processing requirements for minerals before they can be exported, because currently there's a kind of raw materials export ban without defining how far do I have to go in the mineral processing. So we will provide some analysis to the authorities to define those minimum criteria. So it's really about the ecosystem of the mining sector, and we want to make sure that it's in line with the European standards so that we can source from Uganda and that it will be part of our trade relationship. Some minerals are already traded to Europe, but we want this to be more. And to make sure that this is a powerful impact and a positive impact on the communities. That's why I mentioned this pilot on community engagement. And it also has a skilling aspect so that the communities can actually be the mechanics or the electricians or even manning the canteens of the mining operations.
Finally.
Yes, so maybe I hope I touched upon the most important. Maybe let me say that this is really our offer to our partner countries. Nothing that we do has not been co-designed with our partner countries. And what is the big difference in how the European Union operates compared to others are the high standards that we are pushing for in our relationship and the ethical approach not to create any unsustainable debt. So I think by working together like this, we can maximize the positive impact for the Ugandan citizens. Yeah, I close here. Thank you very much for the good discussion.
Thank you very much. Please give Moses and Jacob a very big round of applause. And now you can take your seats. We've been joined by Ambassador Jan SADC. He is the head of the EU delegation to Uganda. And I have been, in my research, this is what I found. So, Your Excellency, I made a gaffe earlier and called you German, and I'm trying to rectify that by providing details to participants about the different people that I misidentified. He is Swedish and loves cycling. You clap. That's true. I don't know how he manages to do that in Kampala with our roads, but I know you might be staying in Kololo, so that's easier, fewer cars. He's also passionate about youth, so we just had a youth panel, which very, very dynamic and excellent, which you missed. I'm sure you'll have a report about that. And he's very technologically savvy. I also learned that he's a very ardent user of AI. So it's very likely the remarks he will give have been generated by AI. And the ambassador will be closing our convention today. You're welcome, and thank you so much for making time to join us. So, colleagues, we have just a few things left to do, including really having fun at the end of the day. One is right now we'll be going through a session where we agree on just a summary, a synthesis of the issues that have emerged. So I'll ask Wopsobozi Yamoti Kangele to come forward, and he's going to present this. We will facilitate just a very short feedback session where you can provide highlights on what he should include. This communique will be finalized, and it will be available to all of us on the platform, digital platform that we created. Shortly after that, we will also have closing statements from Dr. Moses Isoba, the Executive Director of the Uganda National NGO Forum, Mr. James Macbeth Forbes, who is the Country Director of GIZ, and Ambassador Jan Sadek, who is the head of the EU delegation to Uganda, who will officially close this session. We did indicate in the program that we shall have a symbolic closure. And I think this is something I'm excited to look at because it's visual, it's exciting, and it's going to be available to all of us, and we'll reveal that as soon as the ambassador closes the convention. Shortly after that, the members of the the CASP steering committee and a few of you who would like to volunteer will address the press to just really share outcomes and our commitments as a sector, and this is really going to be a civil society press conference. So the ambassador and the country director of GIZ won't be part of it, but the steering committee, we have Rita, I think she just stepped out, Moses and a few others, Agnes as well, will be inviting you, yes, Agnes, to join the team that will address the press. Just 5 of us representing the rest of us, including Benson Ikwe. And then after that, we'll have a networking event which is happening in these premises downstairs. Now, this event is optional but compulsory. For some of us, Stella, I'm looking at you, this is the only time you might have an opportunity to meet an ambassador. So please, and you can ask any question about how he cycles in Kampala and how he uses AI, all those things you can ask during this event. So it's going to be happening downstairs at 5:30. We've asked Daniel Kabanda and Moses Mulindwa to host that session, so there will be a few games to play as we interact with each other. So right now, let us do the thing you all dread most, but it's the final one, Mentimeter. So I'll ask colleagues to queue up. Don't sleep on the job. We are finishing, guys. Mentimeter. Scan the QR code on the screen. Okay. Has the internet gone off? This is the last one, and I'm waiting for Sobosi to come up forward. Oh, okay. Come and take the seats in front. You don't like cameras, but this is the time for you to be in the camera. Please come up. All right, last question. No, third last question. What should be the top 3 priorities for civil society in Uganda post this convention? We have a few options there. These are things that we assume have emerged from the different sessions: protect civic space, strengthen government CSO partnerships. Those of you walking out, I see you. It means that you're protesting against my questions. Enhance financial sustainability, expand youth leadership, leverage digital tools. Only 13 people have responded. If you're folding your arms, I know that you're actually not answering the questions. Yes, follow the leadership of the country director. Please scan the QR code, and if you can't, please type in your search engine, menti.com, and put in the code 84654035. Malcolm, are you doing that? Okay. Patrick Tumine, where are you? Are you answering the questions? Okay. Who else? Who else is not on their phone? Peter Byakutaga from Fort Poto, are you responding? Okay. Who else looks like he's not responding? I see you. I hope I can remember your name, but I see you. Okay. Okay, I'm waiting for a few more so we can go to the next one. 41, we are almost there. We need 60 respondents. That's the minimum. Jemima, have you responded? Okay, you can respond again. Okay. Joy, I don't intend to mention your name, but please respond. 46, no, we are not yet there, guys. We need few more respondents. Someone is dozing. How? Am I boring you? 48, 12 more to go. If your neighbor is not responding, just slap them, wake them up. There's a GIZ table at the back that is just conversing amongst themselves. Are you responding? Okay. Okay. Next question. What one word captures your hope for the future of civil society in Uganda? What one word captures your hope for the future of civil society in Uganda? This is a word cloud, so a very, very beautiful image will emerge. Feni Twibe, you have a smartphone? Good. Respond, please. What one word captures your hope for the future of civil society in Uganda? Helen, digital information? You're there? Okay. Martin Wanzala, have you responded? Let me see your phone. Raise your hand. Okay, good. Let me see. But you're on WhatsApp. How? A few more respondents. We are 36. Let's go. Diversification of ending. Ending. Now, also spelling is taught in nursery school. Now, I know that this is not a youth who wrote this one. They must be one of those born in 19... or who came in 1986. Okay. Make sure your spelling is correct, guys. Don't give us wrong word. You can edit. Please edit your response if you're the one who wrote that. Diversification of ending. Is it you, Kakuru? Don't write it in Ruchiga. Use English. Okay, let's change the rules. You can use your traditional language. Yes. So the Dutch, the Danish that we are wondering whether to respond now, you can use Dutch and respond. Yeah? Give us some practical words from Ruchiga. Where are the Bafumbira? Rita, where are you? Let's get some Kifumbira word. I need to see those coming through. Are you guys seeing what's on the screen? Good. I don't see those words. I'm waiting for Luganda, Luchiga, Acholi. No, you vote again. Vote again. Leonard, I'm waiting for some word from... Yeah, okay. You're voting in English. We shall not count your vote. About Okay, okay. Malcolm, can we see some Ruchiga words? Okay. Kuremeraho. This is a good one. This must be who? Kakuru. Okweyimirizi. Okay, that one. Emanzi. Good. Let's go to the last question. Last one. What is your personal commitment? Personal commitment. It's easy to ask donors questions and all that. So what are we committing to do moving forward? And this is open-ended, so please type as much as you can. What is your personal commitment after this convention? If I had the right to vote, if I wasn't a member of the Electoral Commission, I would write something about the morning session. I think this thing of being good civil society and bad civil society, I'm waiting for Moses to write and say, I am not going to be good civil society. I'll be the bad civil society, as defined by Kavumba and others. Someone is saying they are joining Nafasi. Okay, Nafasi has an I at the end. Spelling errors are punished. So we shall not accept your application. You have to know how to write Nafasi. Local philanthropy, what's that commitment? Okay. Keep writing, we need more responses, and then we'll be on our way to our communique. So I'll keep this open for a meantime, and now invite Wobsobozi Amoti Kangere to go through the draft communique, and we'll have a session where we'll provide feedback. Come here.
All right. Thank you, Chris, for that wonderful moderation. Another hand for Chris. So this communique is still a work in progress. I'm going to read a summary of the issues that were raised today and yesterday, but in the interest of time, you will not notice a slight variation in the way today's issues were organized, and that was because there were a number of things that we were processing, and so we could not do it in time. And I'll read the communique verbatim. It's a communique of the 2025 CSO Convention, theme: the future of civil society in Uganda, the law, the money, the politics here at Mestil. This communique synthesizes the deliberations of plenary and parallel sessions at the 2025 CSO Convention, capturing the key concerns, grievances, and proposals for reform raised by participants. It records not only the challenges faced, but also the collective recommendations to government, donors, and civil society itself. The convention was structured around 3 tracks: the law, the money, and the politics, to address the central issues defining the future of civic space in Uganda. For our purposes, we organized the issues in 4 areas. One was partnership and participation, the other was regulation and compliance, funding and sustainability, and finally, electoral management. On partnership and participation, while CSOs contribute to nearly 40% of service delivery, according to the Executive Director of National Planning Authority, sections of government still antagonize them, treating governance, advocacy, and human rights defenders as subversive actors rather than partners. Community priorities are excluded due to top-down planning, late communication of national consultations, and limited participation mechanisms. While dialogue forums exist between the sector and government, they are not followed up on, leaving recommendations mostly unimplemented. CSO contributions are undervalued due to the absence of a single national system to track their resourcing and impact on Uganda's development. On regulation and compliance, the sector is constrained by more than 19 separate laws and regulations, creating duplication, confusion, and high compliance costs. Security agencies, particularly the police and military, have used intimidation, selective enforcement, and unlawful disruption of lawful civic activities to restrict CSO operations. The NGO Bureau remains under-resourced and inconsistent in issuing permits, with many organizations unable to obtain valid permits a year after rationalization. Limited communication on compliance requirements leaves many CSOs, especially at the grassroots level, unaware of their obligations. On funding and sustainability, funding is shrinking as development partners retreat while local philanthropy remains weak and underdeveloped. Many CSOs operate on project-based grants, limiting continuity and weakening long-term advocacy. Proposals for a basket fund divided opinion. Some saw it as a potential sustainable funding mechanism for the sector, while others feared it would be captured by government interests, compromising independence, accountability, and the sector's ability to be an effective check against government excess. As Dr. Isoba reminded us, we may love the government, but we don't need to get into bed with them. Tax frameworks and financing rules remain prohibitive, with high registration fees, some being extra-legal, multiple levies, and no incentives for charitable giving. On electoral management, persons with disabilities, women, and youth remain marginalized with limited participation in electoral processes. Accreditation of CSOs for election monitoring is delayed, limiting oversight over the process and reducing transparency. Civic education is underfunded and sporadic, resulting in voter apathy and limited knowledge of rights. I'll just skip the recommendations for now and then just jump to some of the challenges also identified today, slightly similar but with smaller nuances. On donor dependence and funding capture, over-reliance on donor priorities drives CSOs into soft issues like climate change, carbon, while neglecting structural injustices. The sector lacks sustainable, locally owned financing. Co-option by the state. Civil society is framed as a development partner rather than a watchdog, creating pressure to serve state-defined agendas over citizen interests. There are intergenerational gaps where young voices are underrepresented and leadership succession within CSOs is often blocked, limiting dynamism and renewal. The rise of surveillance capitalism and anti-terrorism laws and militarized governance further shrink the civic space. Before I go on to the recommendations and proposals, I just thought I'd also just give a recap of some of the key insights from this morning's sessions. Dr. Kabumba framed freedom as a foundational principle civil society must reclaim, describing CSOs as standing in the gap between state and citizen to safeguard civil liberty. However, he cautioned that Uganda's historically built on hierarchies of domination and control, and these inherited structures still shape today's civic space by privileging authority over liberty. He drew a contrast between good CSOs that conform to state regulations and bad CSOs willing to confront power, urging the sector to embrace the latter role when freedoms are at stake. He underlined that civil society cannot be apolitical or apolitical, whichever you prefer. It is always political, even if not partisan, because it engages directly with power, rights, and governance. And so he stressed that CSOs should be explicitly partisan to values like freedom, justice, and equality. From Leonard Okello, we heard that CSOs cannot claim neutrality, even if they are non-partisan. Their role in standing between citizens and the state makes them political actors by definition. He cautioned against the sector's tendency to align too closely with government or donor priorities, When CSOs become implementers of external agendas, they lose their independence and watchdog function. He urged the sector to pursue Ugandan-led solutions to financial fragility, proposing the creation of a civil society endowment fund, with Nafasi being an ongoing initiative, which the entire sector is invited to embrace, and a shift from narrow civic education focused on procedures to popular political education, a process of conscientization that enables citizens to understand power, rights, and governance. And so with that, I'll jump to the recommendations to stakeholders. The rest of the information will be found in the report. To government, we recommend that they stipulate clear timelines for issuing permits and certificates, eliminating delays that hinder CSO operations and electoral monitoring, end intimidation and selective enforcement by security agencies, ensure all state actors operate within constitutional and legal frameworks, institutionalize regular and inclusive government CSO dialogue with mechanisms for follow-up on agreed recommendations. For example, well, it's not a recommendation, but it was an outcome, a communication in this forum, the non-state actors planning engagement framework. Involve grassroots CSOs in national planning processes and simplify digital tools to ensure equitable participation. Provide tax incentives for charitable giving and reduce the cost of registration and renewal. To development partners, the CSOs request them to reform funding models to allow multi-year core support for CSOs, not only project-based funding. Align funding to strengthen evidence-based advocacy and CSO capacity for social enterprise and accountability. Reduce insistence on restrictive government compliance requirements that overburden CSOs in consideration of the high compliance burden they face in this operating environment. To the private sector, we ask that they expand corporate philanthropy programs and incentivize employee giving schemes, that they partner with CSOs in service delivery, innovation, and community empowerment. To ourselves, that we strengthen self-regulation and internal governance through peer learning and shared accountability mechanisms, that we document and quantify CSO contributions to national development, making data accessible to both government and the public. Build grassroots inclusion into programs, ensuring the voices of women, youth, and persons with disabilities shape decision-making. Present a unified voice when engaging in national policy and law review processes, and develop a sector-wide memorandum to input into the NGO Act review process. Those were the recommendations that emerged from this session. There were a few specific proposals for legal reform and policy reform specific to that. Consolidate the laws governing CSOs to limit compliance to not more than 3 laws or agencies. Extend the validity of permits from the current 1 to 2 years to a maximum of 5 years to reduce backlog and cost of compliance. Remove provisions granting discretionary powers to security agencies over CSO operations. Disband or reform district NGO monitoring committees, which currently act as bureaucratic bottlenecks, often demanding unlawful facilitation fees. Revise, also related to DNMCs, revise the composition of committees at both district and sub-county levels to address quorum issues. Require that the NGO Bureau operates independently of partisan interference. That's a policy recommendation. Digitize registration and reporting processes to cut costs and improve transparency while ensuring equitable accessibility for grassroots organizations so that they are not left behind. Adopt risk-based applications of FATF demands or FATF standards, ensuring that low-risk CSOs are not subjected to blanket restrictions. And finally, introduce tax waivers for social enterprises run by NGOs and provide incentives for local giving. Ladies and gentlemen, those were the issues raised at this session, the recommendations and the policy proposals. Over to you, Chris.
You guys, it's not easy to have that summary in just a short time, so please give him a big round of applause. Okay. We have about 10 minutes, so let me see those that have comments that cannot wait. But one of the things that we've decided quickly is that we'll give you an email address where you can share comments, just in case you don't have an opportunity to raise it now. But for those of you who, if you do not speak, you might hate me. Let's see your hand. Okay, I have one who would hate me if he doesn't speak. So right there. Anyone else? Stella, anyone else? Let me see. Is that all? You can speak now, forever hold your peace. Okay. So have you, Stella, and the lady there.
Thank you so much, presenter. My name is Dr. Solomon. I work for the Uganda National Medical Alliance for Prisoner Support. We support people in prisons. My comment is, second submission, we need dialogues, international dialogues. For instance, this is a dialogue.